Welcome to Building Stories. We're going to do something a bit different today, and we've brought in some of our experts from the team, and you're going to get to know us a bit better, hear about our background, hear about how crazy we are doing what we're doing. And firstly, I'd like to introduce you to Ricky, our CEO, Michael, who's the head of DS BIM and Design, Suds, who's the head of GTM for DS Site, and myself. And Ricky, tell us a bit about you. How do you end up here today, sitting in this call?
Jeez, straight to it. No letting up. I won't go into the Simpro journey too much. I think that's been well documented.
Nobody knows what Simpro is, anyway.
Nobody knows what Simpro is. I think I do want to go back to a time when I was working at a large company called Schneider Electric, and iPhones were coming out. So 2008, 2010. If you talk about innovation, first. Right? Yeah, exactly. So Schneider was on BlackBerry. We were part of the acquisition team that came from iPhone. But we had Pronto, we had SAP, we had every piece of system you can ever imagine. One day got me thinking that our field service team comes into the office far too often. They're too regularly on Friday. You've got 40 guys coming off the road. Each one you could charge out at, I don't know, even back then, $300 an hour. They usually spend 4 hours in the office doing timesheets. Seemed like an incredible waste of time. That's when I ran into Simpro. And then, cut the long story short. So that's when I really kind of got into what the mobile technology and internet can do for the business, right? Now, fast forward that through Simpro, obviously what we did at Simpro was amazing. When we came out of Simpro, we obviously had a lot of scars, right? Like it's a tough journey. And we were wondering as to what we're going to do next. So we set up a little fund called Venture On. That's when we ran into you guys, right? Over a few beers, got talking. And I guess
tell us about the scars quickly, because it was a journey, but what personal tolls and things you put into that journey over a number of years? What was that like?
Great question. It's hard to sum it up within 2 minutes without a bottle of whiskey in front of you, but
just assume the listeners have that.
Exactly.
We're going to open up the wounds now.
Yeah, that's it.
The whiskey, it'll just make you start crying.
Well, everything you're doing is for the first time. The playbook, even though everyone says there's a playbook, you have never actually wrote the plays in the playbook, nor have you actually taught yourself on the playbook. And the playbook for ANZ companies doesn't exist, or didn't exist back then. So started off in Australia, came to New Zealand, went to the UK, then went to the US. Every time you are having to reinvent yourself, the time away from your family, there are no weekends. There is no after hours because, Friday in the US is Saturday here. So obviously your global roles, your team's size, and the external pressure of having to go fast, being the first. This whole founder mindset, right? You want to be the first. You want to be the first to innovate. You want to be the first to grab the market, and the pressure that comes with it.
So you do all that. You have all this pressure. You make an exit. You could go to Hawaii for a few years, but instead you straight away start a podcast and start a venture capital company. Why? Why would you do that?
Why is my wife listening to this?
She sent me that question.
Look, I think it just depends on who you are. I am the type who can't relax, and that's the downside of a personality like mine, right? You could I've tried it and I've miserably failed, so much so that my wife has said, you better leave the house because at this point in time, you are becoming a hazard around the place. So I have to be doing something. And also, to answer your question more specifically, when you do go through the journey, you learn a lot. You literally fall into every manhole. So what you do want to do is help others. There's no point in absorbing and learning all of this and then just retaining that knowledge, right? There's no So to me, the reason we started Sassy Talk was to give back, and Venture On was always going to be that forward-thinking investment model. I would hate to call ourselves VCs because we're not. So it was very much like, okay, what do we learn? What could we have done differently? What kind of help could we have had differently? We worked with some amazing PE partners in the US, absolutely brilliant. But if we were to do it all over again, it would have been like, what could we emulate and what would we do differently? So that's where the thesis behind Venture On came in, right?
And why Contech? Like, why start looking at Contech PropTech?
Good question. Again, we all have our biases and what we are familiar with. So trade and construction, we're familiar with ourselves as personalities, as individuals. Go back to my time at Schneider. I'd been around construction. I'd been on sites. I studied mechatronics engineering. There was no robotics really back then, so I fell into construction. Fell into BMS technology and so forth. So, and then Simpro, obviously dealing with tradies, always kind of stayed around that whole blue collar, a white collar kind of a roundabout, right? Like it's fascinating for so many reasons. But also there's a comfort level because the personas, the people that you deal with. Also, it's a difficult space to enter for others. So what is inherent knowledge to you and I is very foreign to a typical investor, right? So we wanted to be very sector specific, and we also wanted to be very different and only really invest in a couple of companies that we would actually help. So it wasn't just about investment, it was also about what can we bring to the table. So just leaning back on experience.
So what is the Deep Space Group? How do we find ourselves linked together now?
We've changed heaps, haven't we? From the time we first had those beers at Howard Smith Wharf in Brisbane. So I think let's kind of answer this question slightly differently. Why do we even link up? All right. What was our thesis? I told you a little bit about Venture On. For us, what was really exciting about you guys, 2 co-founders, deep subject matter expertise. You'd been in the game. You understand the challenges firsthand. You'd run a very successful BIM business. You'd been part of businesses that were delivering those solutions. So I think that is a plus. Secondly, because you came from the design side, you had a lot more exposure to tech. So you've got to keep that in mind, right? And with what we thought, also, if we bring our experience, the so-called learned experience, and we club that together, we can do something special. So what's that allowed us to do, fast forward 6 to 12 months, is we've probably taken on risk that a typical startup wouldn't take. So what is Deep Space Group? We've now acquired a business, right? We're so early on in the startup stage, which normally you wouldn't do. We've gone multi-products really, really quickly, which you generally wouldn't do. And we can probably touch on the reasons why we've done that. But yeah, I'm super proud and super excited of what we achieved in the last 6 months in particular and the direction we're taking.
So go back, why you end up with 2 40-year-old blokes? A couple of guys out of uni, you can pay them cheap, you can shape them.
Yeah.
Why?
It's not your looks.
They're not getting better.
No. Your wife probably disagrees. You guys are good looking, but more importantly, I think, as I touched on earlier, we know what it takes. So having come out the other end, gone through the journey that we had, the domain knowledge is not to be taken lightly. The times have changed. I talked about mobile revolution. We are now at the cusp, but we're 1 year in, I believe. It was in this AI revolution, or whatever you want to call it, right? So 40-year-old is hugely important in the scheme of things, because if you were 20, and this is not me knocking 20-year-olds, there's some really clever 20-year-olds out there, right? same as like 40 or 60-year-olds. So age isn't necessarily a barrier. It was more so that you guys had lived through the first-hand experience of coming across those problems. The problems in construction is not like your typical horizontal play. It's not something that a B2B GTM business goes through. It's not something that you go through in fintech. So this is just me being biased, but construction has really sophisticated problems, right? In terms of there's alignment issues, there's incentive issues with different teams, design, construction, and build phase. So if you don't have that knowledge, yes, you could get two guys really, straight out of uni, really clever, bolt together a solution, but your learning curve is massive. And that would have been just us looking at ourselves and then kind of going back in time. And we know the pressure points, right? So I think there was two things there. And so obviously we're also backing ourselves and bringing that learned experience. But to answer your question, that lived experience is hugely valuable. Oh, you dropped off. Has he?
Gone now.
There you go.
It's disappeared.
Yeah. Must be a bit glitchy. Oh, broke. Yes.
I'm back.
Boring Stories has dropped off. You're back.
You guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know what happened.
All good.
All right. So, we're still recording? Yep. So we got through this 40-year-old thing. So how would you describe the mission that Deep Space Group is on now as a collective?
And I'd love to get everyone's opinion and views on this. So for me, it is a race in some sense, right? It's a race in regards to the fact what I just said. AI has changed or reshaped the game. So the fact we are in this unique position, we not only understand the domain collectively, right? We also understand the tech. We understand how to grow a tech business. So you've got 3 ticks there. On top of that, in terms of our product, I think we have a really unique value proposition is that we sit on project data. We bring all the data sources under one roof, and then we can harvest that and give our users that incredible insight that no other platform can, which also then, as a result, makes Kai, which we've only recently released, our AI agent, in my opinion, the strongest, the best, and the fastest in this construction industry by miles. So to me, that's really our vision. We're here to help our customers get better. Like construction is a fine art. No two buildings are the same, no two sites the same, no two resources are the same. Every time, every team looks different. So you've got so many variables attached. All of a sudden you give them this incredible insight that you can take from one project learning to the other, which we are in a position to do so. I think we put ourselves in a very unique position, not from a product perspective, but from a customer angle. I see this as a very unique offering for the businesses that take this on, right? So that's what excites me.
It's been likened to, construction's likened to a kitchen, but, each time you cook something, it's a different kitchen, a different recipe, and a different group of people. And we're trying to solve that, by sharing the data. Michael, as a co-founder, what's your view of the mission?
Like construction is broken, and I think a lot of people, like everybody, kind of witnesses it at some degree. You go to, you book yourself in to see the doctor, or you check your car in, and or you buy something online, post something. Like this digital world is solving a lot of problems, and then we arrive at site and we've still got broken information sharing, broken collaboration, and I think we're just very frustrated there's still lots of tools on the ground, and nothing's connected up very well. And I think we've just got to fix it. And I think it's been like, it's really hard. A lot of people have been trying to think about this or just wrestle with this problem. Why is it broken? Like, what's the resistance? Why is it hard to change? Why do we the course correct? Like, what do we have to do to fix it? And but I think especially with the AI tools that have come about, what it's doing is it's being able to answer this question that is actually very deep and hard, and the AI can search across it, and I think pull a lot of people together to help address it and get it moved forward.
Suds, your background is in site tools and kind of quality assurance. How do you see like the deep space mission linking to those things?
I think it's very exciting. It touches on a lot on what Michael said. I think what I've noticed, especially in the construction layer and even at the subcontractor layer, is decision making is one of the most important parts of construction. So you have so many tiered layers of leadership. And as more tools have come on board, more point solutions, more solutions that are meant to sort of fit over multiple use cases, what's ended up happening is there's just lots of different data points, and it resulted in decision paralysis at a time where decision making should be accelerating. Newer projects, larger projects, more complex, more data, more stakeholders. And so what really excites me about Kai and AI is that bringing all of that together, we're actually enabling, right? And we're just improving decision making. And it's in my belief, after all these solutions have been out, and like Michael said, you still show up to site and there's still so many things that aren't working. It's that cohesiveness, specifically on the data. It's what the data is supposed to enable, and that's better decision making. So that's what makes me super excited. And as we continue to deliver these types of offers at the various tiers of construction, I'm really hopeful we're going to start to see that unlocking and people leaning back into their expertise and able to do that with more confidence, and that's going to result in more value.
Yeah, I would also add, like, we've through the last 50 years, the knowledge worker has been very paramount to kind of industry and Western culture and society. The knowledge worker has gathered and sort of made themselves prominent. But what I think has resulted in that is a lot of work about work. It's not actually getting the thing done. And when you get into construction, it is about pouring concrete, erecting steel, getting the thing built. And there's still so much knowledge work being done that is too hard. So it actually is just work about work. It's actually not like get the concrete poured in the right spot at the right time. Like, why is it so hard to do that? Oh, it's because there's emails and there's correspondence and there's a drawing that we're waiting on and there's a concrete grade that we haven't really spec'd properly. And like, why is it so hard to what are those barriers? Well, it's like we've got to take some of those pieces out. Should be a very streamlined approach.
Should be. That's the key word there. Just want to go back to something you said, double click on what you said, Sats. Where do the traditional SaaS businesses sit now, as far as you're concerned, in the spectrum? Because you talked about point solutions, all right? Point solutions had a place. They still have a place, but it sounds like you were just saying that all they've done is created this decision-making process, or elongated it, right? Like, it's made it worse. So what's the future there? And how have you seen the shift, or is that shift starting to take place? We're in it now. Like, where do we stand?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, typically SaaS goes out to try and solve issues, usually niche problems, right? And that's exactly what was happening in construction, is that people have gone out, looked at the bigger problem, said it's confusing, tried to solve a niche issue, created a point solution for it. add in the required cohesiveness of the construction world to complete a project, all of those point solutions start to either fall down or require a lot of legwork to kind of make them work. And if you add to that deficiencies in particular SaaS businesses, we don't have particular tools or we can't do particular things after, a customer's buying journey, it really starts to make life very difficult for the customer. And so, without getting too lengthy into that, I think the change that's required in the industry is tooling like Kai, tooling like Deep Space to allow some of this cohesiveness to come back and, declutter. But in terms of growth of all the other point solutions, more of a focus on also trying to solve this problem, more of a focus on not saying, go further down this niche hole with us. Actually, no, we also understand the greater problem. We're going to push our product in that direction as well. And so there's a bit of a reckoning in terms of what SaaS businesses are looking for in terms of, growth, product pathway, what they're trying to do for their customers, what they define as value. Because at the end of the day, if a SaaS business chooses value as X and goes for it, that's what's going to happen. But maybe the industry is looking for Y. And so we've had a couple of that happen. And so hopefully, a venture like Deep Space and Kai and what we're doing helps guide the pathway, especially at least in the ANZ sector for now.
Nice one. Luke, you've been asking all the questions. Give us your version. Like, how has this, thinking evolved from the time you and Michael, sat at a bar and came with this concept of Deep Space, and where do we sit now in 2025? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, Michael and I, we loved making things. We loved using technology. I think with the benefit of hindsight, you see that the first few generations of Contact were very much iterative on something basic. Like you take email and you put it in a website and it's Aconex and it's $1 billion company. But it didn't really disrupt our workflow. It just, it was kind of a minor tweak. BIM we felt was this really big thing because we're going to take, the 2D world and put it in 3D, but it then started to get put at arm's length and the builders are like, it's an add-on cost. And a lot of things had potential, but there was just not enough action. I think that's what Michael was saying before is like work about work. We start adding layers. Oh, let's create a standard. Let's make this compliant. But really every layer we add slows us down. And, Suds is like, we got to make better, faster decisions. How are we going to do that? We have to actually think fundamentally differently. And so Michael and I, we sat down, we said, the discipline, the industry we're in, we have to make it essentially redundant. We have to take the work that we do, and we think we're super smart BIM guys, we have to put that in a computer, in a machine. We have to make that available to every construction business. And it really grew from there into something bigger, which is any kind of knowledge work in construction. Let's bring the data in. These people who are managing little Excel files on their desktop or a program in P6, or a lot of it can be now distributed into a team as long as there's a system that's kind of this monitoring integration system. We're going to speed up those decisions because you have correlated data. And that's what all the point solutions ultimately lack. Even some of the bigger players, they're more like a Frankenstein set of point solutions. They're actually not connected very well to each other. I think that's one of the things we wanted to do differently with our acquisition is we wanted to make that site tool that we acquired very closely connected with what we're doing, connect it straight to the AI, connect it to other data sources, and really make this one Deep Space entity together.
Talk to me. This is not about creating scarcity. Our solution, you touched on, it's about making yourself redundant or the future self. But what's how do you see the industry evolve? Because a lot of people listening to this will say, well, we've known about this problem. Tech adoption has been tested and tried in the construction industry. It's made all these promises. You just talk about BIM. You talked about some of the other solutions that exist in the market space, but they haven't really moved the needle, right? We've just now created all this additional work and this layer. And some would argue the only people who've benefited out of this is the software companies, right? Not necessarily the end user of these assets for the construction companies. The margins are much better. The buildings aren't necessarily going up any faster, right? Obviously some people are going to listen to this and disagree, and which is absolutely fine. But what's going to change? What is changing that hasn't been done before?
Well, it's exactly what you said. People are kind of fed up with paying for stacks of software and not seeing enough value for it. And they're now looking to reduce their tech stack spend. And they're trying to find a way to do that. Not that easy, because you've now got all these point solutions. You need to somehow work your way out of the problem. You need to somehow, firstly, get all that into one place where your team and your business can look at it. It's not just a layer for layer's sake. It's because the future is simplicity versus complexity. You can't, like tech adoption is hard in construction. So the more tools you have, the harder it gets. And that's always going to be true.
Change gears.
I think,
sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to add in, I think those owners, like these asset owners, and even, like government, who need to step up and drive the change. And I think about the world that we are creating for our kids. Like we might be working on a stadium or a hospital now that is going to get built in 3 years' time, that our kids might go to, or my kids might deliver a child at that hospital. Like, so I want them to have that experience. And if we are looking around and all these buildings are starting to cost too much, they're not going to build that hospital. They're not going to build that stadium. And that's a sad state of the world if we do not solve this. And if those big industry, like the industry and the big asset owners and the clients whose buildings these are, and in collaboration with the builder and the general contractor and the subcontractor, everybody has to make a better future. We have to build a better future, but it's on the line. Like this, it might blow out, and we can't actually afford the future that we want to give our kids.
We all want a better stadium, airports, and hospitals, as you see, Michael. But a lot of people listening in may just go, awesome, great dudes, 4 guys wearing deep space t-shirt telling you what the world will look like. I think no one disagrees, right? I think we've all had enough conversations by now with the industry experts, and we, talking about your experience. We've come from that place. It's almost like the problem is well known. Talk to me how you think the solution, or our solution in particular, or any solution for that matter, like how's software going to change that? Like, how do I convince my neighbor who is also living in the same society that his kids may not have a nice hospital to go to touch on what you just said, Michael, and what are we doing about that? Like, what's our offering?
The software has to step away. It can't be about the technology. And when I book into a hospital or I book a holiday online, I'm not thinking about the software that's helping me sort that whole thing out. That actually falls away into the background. I could get through this operation and I'm home and I'm recovering. Or, the farmer with his big John Deere tractor is sorting out the things. All the technology has stripped away to make the work easier and the thing that we're doing easier. And I think like deep space can't be just a solution for moving data from here to there. It's actually got to make somebody's day a lot easier. It's got to reduce the risks very easily out of a project. It's got to, I log into deep space and I can see what I need to see very quickly. And suddenly I'm not a software solution. I'm a solution to, I haven't got enough people on site. We're a solution to, we've got some big risks on the project, but I can't see them all. or we've got to hand over this project in 3 months' time. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it. Have I got a solution to that?
What can we do?
So this software steps back and it just gives people an interface. Like I do, if I'm communicating with my family, I don't think, where's the software that's going to drive my phone to, and the tower, that's 3 kilometers away that it's going to connect to. Like I don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
It's solved for me.
It's about outcomes, right? I think that's what's like I see as the major difference.
I mean, the pitch is every software solution has the same pitch, right? But I think what you're talking about is that we're in this. It sounds like to me we're right now living through the change. It's only when we come out the other side. It's like mobile phone. You just touched on as an example. It's so easy now. I don't know if you remember you guys watching Jurassic Park, but I saw those video calling and some of that, or like any one of those movies, right? In the 90s, it was near impossible to think that will be the future. You were being shown the future through Hollywood eyes. But now, we can all jump on this and we can do this quite easily. Like, we don't have to think about it too. I guess where I'm going with this question is that at what point is what we're talking about just becomes industry norm?
I think it's coming quickly, and it's coming in the next couple of years. And that's what I have seen change even in the past, let's say 12 months, is the industry is now aware of the stuff that was sitting behind our thesis, and they're now actively looking to fix this problem, and people are making fast decisions. And they recognize that time is of the essence. And I think maybe that pressure just wasn't there before, because a lot of time in construction, like we've been building forever. We built the Empire State Building, so many thousands of people died on that site, but, we still got it built. So they basically, there's always been like, it'll be okay mindset in construction. And it's not all doom and gloom, but it's like people recognize something has to change fast, and the technology is now coming fast. And so those two things are converging.
Again, so relating that to tech, was it you saying that we're in the moment when we went from BlackBerry to smartphone?
Yeah.
Like it just happened so quickly.
100%.
12 months ago when we were talking, like even us, when we're talking about AI, people are like, yeah, we've heard of OpenAI. All it does is tells me how to write an email because it can guess the second word or the next word. But it seems like that has just, in the last 6 months or even last 6 weeks, has just rapidly gone from 0 to 100 because of DeepSeek. Because,
and not just the AI piece, because people now they get the LLMs and whatever and how it works, but they immediately go, this thing only can help me if it's been fed information about what I'm trying to do. And so then the knowledge or the problem gap has shifted away from AI can answer really hard questions fast and help me generate content to my business context, my work context is not living in that LLM. How do I join those two things? And we're talking a bit in geeky terms, but like that's ultimately deep space is like putting your project data in a place that the AI can actually work with it productively, which is a game changer.
I think a non-geeky way, this analogy, I just absolutely
coming
love
from
it.
You.
There's this, I can track a pizza getting cooked on my phone. So I can order my pizza from my phone, but I can watch a status on whereabouts my pizza is in the queue, if it's in the oven, if it's being cut up, and when it's going to get delivered, right? So I think demand, if I can do that with a pizza, why can't I track the steelwork on site? Like why? Why can't I know that the concrete truck is pouring that piece of slab today, and I can walk on it tomorrow? So this demand, and now everybody's got a co-pilot sitting on the computer. Why can't I ask my project, where are we at today?
So just going back to the example, there is a trust layer, right? So a lot of people, just putting my devil's advocate hat on, a lot of people listening to this or in the construction business will be going, awesome. but my issues are so complicated. I don't see how any piece of software can do this. So I don't trust any off-the-shelf solution. I'm just going to ask my internal guys to come up with a project and build this thing internally because my problems are so unique.
Yeah.
I think that's a story you often hear.
Talk to a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Few things happen. You put a lot of money into it, you put time into it, you buy some resources, you build something, and literally you struggle to get the adoption the exact same way. And then you struggle to maintain it. And this is not like a self-serving story. This is just the story we hear. And all these guys, even the large multidisciplinary consultants, they got analysts, they got coders. They don't want to be a software company anymore because they recognize this is not what they are about. They're about designing or they're about building. You know, like why do you have coders in-house? Why are you trying to do that in-house? Certainly your business has some things that make it different, you know, principles around quality and certain a mission that your business is on. But, you know, data analytics is not what your business is about, and AI is not what your business is about. It's about serving those higher goals and putting pieces in place to do that.
And I guess even if you're building something internally, you already recognize there's a problem, right? So you're trying to look for a solution regardless. So whether or not you've done your research well enough and you've found, I don't know, Deep Space or whoever, right? Like the only challenge is maybe through your bias lens, you haven't just gone and looking for the solution that may exist, or at the time you went looking, 2 years ago, it didn't exist. So nevertheless, the problem is there and it's been recognized within an organization. What does the next 5 years look like? We've touched on what mobile internet revolution, what mobile revolution did. Right? Internet to me took about 20 years, give and take. Mobile probably took 10. AI, we're 12, 18 months in. Things are happening pretty quickly, like rapidly, changing by a day. What's happening in 3 years, 4 years?
Following this path and looking at adoption, it's going to be, wide scale adoption. It's going to be those typical conversations we've had around, especially with AI, will people lose jobs? But my personal viewpoint on it, it's going to be a return to a norm, right? I think you brought up that point of norm before. It's this whole trajectory to get to where we've gotten to, where AI has become relevant, has come from, we've got a job to do. I think what I want to do as a project manager, but I need processes. How do I do that on paper? Or, then I don't do it on rudimentary CAD, then I do it on Excel, then I do it on mobile. It's like you've got this revolution that's been going on for decades now, to the point where the project management job itself has been diluted away from its original form. And the one thing that excites me about AI, especially something like, data abstraction AI and what Deep Space is doing, is we're actually going to help people return back to that norm, where your most important thing is to come into work in the morning and use your project management expertise to address the problem and have access to things like data and aggregation and tools, and not spend, half your time cobbling that stuff together just to make a decision that you're still not quite sure about because you can't trust your own, data aggregation. So yeah. I find it exciting. That's sort of where we're hopefully going to get to in the next few years.
I hear you guys, right? Like, so I'm on this side of the fence now. Or great. I hear you. If I'm an exec sitting in one of these companies, or if I'm a project manager, or if all I'm going to get is my time back, surely I'm just going to be given more work. So how does that improve my life? I don't understand that. Help me explain that to me. Even if any solution makes me go faster and smarter and harder, I'm just going to be given more work. So my life remains the same.
Yeah, there's a bit of a difference though. There's the difference between like digging a hole with a shovel or pressing a button and a robot digging a hole for you. So like, do you want to really be doing repetitive work over and over again, the style that you've been doing now, where you're there on Friday at 6 p.m. and you've got a big pile of drawings from the architect, you're trying to review them, find the gaps, mitigate the risks before Monday? Is that the kind of work you want to keep doing? Or do you want a machine to do a lot of this for you, give you a summary, send the email for you, and you get there on Monday, and you call the person, say, look, we found these problems in the drawings. Can you please look at this ASAP? And you're still there, you're still necessary, but your interactions are much more pointed. You're less stressed. You're using your brain power for strategic reasons, process improvement. This is what I think has ultimately lacked in construction is people are so busy with repetitive tasks, they don't have enough time to actually ideate about how to do something better. They're not given the time or space to do it.
So we, as a business, I should be able to charge the same, improve my output, right? Because it now has given me my time back margins. Where I can actually, some more margins, right? Effectively, what we're talking about. But better outcome, ultimately better outcome, because you just mentioned, if you remove the administration work away from me, I can probably do problem solving. I can probably think and give me the white space thinking.
Mentoring.
Mentoring,
sharing.
all that sort of stuff, right? Knowledge gap that's been created in the industry. So we've solved all the problems on this podcast.
I want to go back to you, Ricky. So you look at all these incumbents, look at all these big content companies. They're now massive. They got heaps of resources, big teams. How's Deep Space really going to make an impact? You look at this big ocean.
Dude. I think it's no different than if Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Ricky Sevta of 2017 answer this question. I think the biggest advantage any startup has, not just us. You got small, scrappy team who is laser focused, who does not care about the time. They just are so customer focused and so outcome driven. And also just want to make a name for their customers and ourselves, right? So inherently, we are that much more driven. And I think that really has always been, I felt like, startups' moat. It's not to say that bigger guys can't do it, and they will definitely do it. It's not a case of, if the challenge with larger businesses, having been at the tail end of a business that grew from startup to scale up, when you have fighting priorities, it's no longer about 5 things, it's about 500. And the product dev work, your distribution, everything slows down. So your time to react to market conditions are dramatically slower. And that's the only way, I think, not just eSpace, but any startup can come in and make a difference. The other good thing is, I think we are now in this era where you've got a lot of corporate customers who are willing to recognize that and are willing to give the local startups like DSpace a chance, right? We've spoken about some of this at larger events. As an industry, it's a call out to industries that you must at least look at the options that are available in the market space, not just lean back on corporate layer. So I don't know. That's what I'd have to say to that.
Let's get real then. So we've got product lines in Deep Space and we've got customers. Let's make a link between these product lines and customers. So Michael, DSBIM is a product that we brought to market. Who's the customer? Tell us some stories about how people use it.
So I think DSBIM, this is where we started. And I think if you go back to some backstory, you and I came out of this consulting business. We if you go back even further, we're from the design side. You're an architectural firm. I was at a structural engineering firm. When we got together and we started this consulting business. Now what happened there? We spent all of our time. Our client was construction companies, and so we had all of this design domain knowledge, which is where all this, where all the drawings are produced, where the designs iterated, where the models are produced, and now we're working for the construction companies. And the reason is that the construction companies, hey, we're telling them there's more to these drawings than you could just see. Underneath those drawings are produced by all of this amazing data. You just got to grab hold of it And so we spent, 15 years working for these construction companies, showing them what they already had. It's all in all this data is over here, coming from the design team. And we spent a lot of time, obviously, in the model world, which is where this DS BIM product actually serves a lot of that very front end of design, and even for the builder, in that design management space. So DSBIM has a set of tools, like a very extensive set of tools, extracts all the data, every element, every parameter on every element, and then it can tell you a lot about what the design team's handing over to be built. The thing about the builder is they only ever build what is handed to them. They're not ever going to build anything that they're not supposed to build. And so all of that information on what they've got to build is sitting in a data set or data sets that the design team is going to hand over to them. So that's kind of there's sort of two customers really. There is the designers, or the BIM consultants that work for them, and then there's the construction companies that have got their head around the models and digital engineering, and they're using that as part of their workforce. But obviously, DS BIM is quite limited in its just the BIM tools, and so it's not too far down the track that you start going, hey, I've got all this data sitting in these models, but over here I've got a construction program or a design program, and we want our estimating team to extract this information too. Or we've got all these other data sets. This is where DS BIM turns into DS Design and DS Pro for designers, which is like I now want to grab all that information that's producing those drawings, and then I want to wire it into these other data sets that we as a company or a construction firm really rely on. So it's all the program, the cost information.
Yeah. So can stay on DSBIM for a second. Like, firstly, why is it so cheap? And if I am a building company, can I fire my BIM manager if I buy it?
Why is it so cheap? There's a lot. Why is it so cheap? So DS, the designs, they're always got to be strung by cash or for software to help them produce their models, their designs. And so we wanted a very lightweight tool that sits on top of all of that and informs them on where they're at with their models, where they're at with their designs. Can a construction company fire their BIM managers? Well, with DS BIM, a construction company can load in all of their models, and Deep Space will be telling them a lot about what they need to know that a BIM manager was going to be informing them. So that's all getting harvested from the designers, and is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for a BIM manager. So maybe a BIM manager now for a construction company, instead of being across 1 or 2 projects, is now across 10 projects.
Okay. So, and how much would a BIM manager cost me if I was a construction company?
120, 150K.
So you kind of 5x'd my impact for like $300 a month, essentially. Cool. DS Site, Suds, what is DS Site and who's it for, and what are they going to get out of it?
Great question. So DS Site, we're speaking quite a lot about the design and some of the upper layers, as you would call it, of the construction life cycle. And you touched on before, through acquisition and through wanting to continue to serve tools, but also the deep space vision and journey through things like Kai is really, really important. And that's where DS Site comes in. And the main aim with DS Site is field management through a lens of quality and safety. That's sort of the overarching goal. What is it trying to solve? When you get down on construction sites, whether that's low-end commercial, residential, high-end residential, subcontractors, contractors, and the people that are sort of in charge of bringing these assets to market or bringing these assets to completion are still working through a lot of compliance requirements, but also a lot of adoption issues, engagement issues that are related to tech adoption. So we've got various tools out there helping with things like inductions, site sign-ins, incident reports, and so on and so forth. And again, a lot of the points we've touched on here around tech adoption are 5x'd in that environment. Busy people on phones doing work, maybe not a lot of drive to actually fill out these bits of information, whether it's due to age or busyness or whatever. So DSite hopes to come in and offer, first of all, an affordable solution for this tranche of the market, but also offer visibility. So at that sort of mid contractor and residential builder level, start to give them tools to be able to pull in all the data from that site in regards to compliance and specifically quality and safety, and then be able to do a lot more with that data. So at the DS site level, understand where your workers are, what they're doing on the day, receive back any forms you need to, safeguard yourself against that WorkSafe visit. So where no one knows when that WorkSafe visit or what's going to happen, having a tool like DS site gives you that sort of confidence around that as well.
Explain that a bit more. So, like, imagine a global audience. Like, what if I don't do anything about quality and safety and compliance? Why does it matter for my business?
Safety is a pretty clear one, right? I think construction safety on site has been an issue globally for a long time. If you look at a lot of jobs out there in the world, construction is up there with the most dangerous, and especially on that construction layer, the boat layer, where people are actually on site doing work. Various reasons, high risk activities, or depending on the age group or the skill level that's on your site. You know what I mean? In low end residential, you're likely got a lot of apprentices with you. On high end, commercial builds, you're working at heights, you're working in dangerous environments, you're working in high wind environments. So, and adherence to safety is important all over the world. In Australia, we have WorkSafe. There's multiple other bodies. So, adhering to that from a company perspective, you're taking care of your compliance requirements. But on a human level, you can make sure that your sites are safe. And I think that's the most important thing. On the quality side, quality has been an important part of construction for a long time. These are assets, as Michael mentioned, we want to have around for our children. If we're gonna create the reasoning to build these for the long term, then we got to follow through and make sure they're actually going to last that long. And so making sure that quality is adhered to is extremely important. And one of the best ways to do that is through proactive quality. Not going out and trusting somebody's word that they're going to build it, having them take half a photo afterwards and maybe log that somewhere. Having companies step out there, use all of this rich context that has just been driven down through descriptions, Michael, you've given around the design flow and the BIM flow. What a travesty to get down to the actual construction level and have nobody bother and follow that. And be like, oh, it's a roof that built it 100 times. It's like, no, well, what type of roof is it? Why is it different? The designer has put some requirements into this. There's some high risk activities that need to be followed. There's some adherence that needs to go on here. And once you start to do that, it drives a culture change. So what we're trying to do here is give contractors and principals the tools to be able to make sure that their assets that they are liable for are of a high quality, and also drive a change in the industry where people start to look at things like safety and quality adherence as proactive activities as opposed to reactive activities. And so that's kind of the DS site approach, and I think adding a data and AI level on top of that, it really excites me, and I won't bore you guys with that just yet.
Good pitch. Mate, I want to come back to you, Luke. So, as I mentioned before, multi-product in the early stage startup is uncommon. So, maybe talk to us as to why we've done that, and what's this DS Pro that I see on the website? What does that mean? Who is it for? How does it all come together?
I think it was great hearing from Michael and Suds, because you can see how we have a solution for the design and BIM side that's very affordable, and a solution for the site side that's very affordable. But all of that data comes into one place, and for a business to maximize the value from it, DS Pro is essentially the everything included package in Deep Space. So that includes all your integrations, all your data warehousing in country, all your apps and analytics, all your AI applications. And so what we find is people are not going to pick that up and use every feature tomorrow, but they are going to find 2 or 3 things that are really high value. And that's why the way we price DS Pro was like, as long as you're getting value from these 2 or 3 things, it's a no-brainer. Beyond that, you're going to get more and more value as you work on it more and more, or use it more and more. I think the ideal customers are really these asset owners, people like data center owners, hospitals, airports, people who really care about their long-term management of their assets and their capital works, and then also contractors. Tier 1 contractors are a great customer, but they're up against the fact of they've spent a lot of money probably doing some internal projects, and they're going to have to make that tough call soon of, do we stay on this path or do we go to market? Because there's now DS Pro, which probably supersedes some of the work we've done internally. Why would they do it? It's because now you've got a software company who takes ownership of maintaining that thing, the security of it, keeps modernizing it constantly, and globally. What makes it urgent, I think, is the question I want to get to. This is a race. Like, all companies are in a race of some kind. Construction businesses, asset owners are in a race to remain profitable, and the thing that actually makes your company different is the amount of data you can access and make decisions based on. And the longer you wait to start capturing it, the further behind that race you're getting every single day. Every single day you don't have a place where you're centralizing that data, and your competitors do. They know something more than you do. They're going to make a better decision. They're going to start to really just leap forward.
So, Luke, just talk through a bit more about why, like if a customer's only getting 2 or 3 things out of it, it could also have, you're asking them to replace a point solution that's doing 2 or 3 things over here as well. Mm. So, I mean, we talked a bit about how construction is difficult, and it is, and we've got to totally acknowledge that construction is hard. There is a lot of people, but having a full stack from design through to site and aggregating data across many different places, you've got this kind of multifaceted view of your project. And so just talk through why you need to get all your data in one spot, and why DS Pro has to be a solution across from design through to site.
Yeah, it's all about correlation, because a decision you make in design could make your site less safe and lead to more safety incidents. Like, right from that moment of drawing some lines on a page or in back of a napkin sketch to the moment you're hitting a nail on site, there's a golden thread. And at the moment, it's all over the place. It's been chopped up and stuck in 20 different point solutions. And so that's really, part of our big vision is that, Deep Space is a place that connects all these things. It's already doing it. But ultimately, it also shows you what's the impact of a change. Like, if this drawing changes, how does that affect cost? How does that affect quantities? How's that going to affect time? How's that going to affect the guy on site who's already started building over there? All these things are linked in a real-time fashion. But at the moment, we'll wait till the end of the monthly report, and then we'll have a meeting with the state GMs, and it's too late. This is why projects go behind and why companies go under, because their decision-making is too slow.
It'd be cool to just throw out some examples here of how we actually see this happening. Like, we talk to customers, all week. I was talking to someone, and we were looking at some trending information on just the model deliverables. And so what this customer is looking at is there is this flat line happening for one trade. They just kind of stopped work. And so, we're collecting data, all these data drops. and you can see nothing's happening with this particular trade. And so the correlation, like I just kind of want to get pointy, what you're saying is, and what this customer is witnessing is like, why is that flatlining? Why is no work happening for that particular discipline?
And why are they still putting a progress claim in if they're not doing anything?
Yeah. And the answer to that data might be in another data set. It might be in an email correspondence. So now Deep Space can search across all of that to give you the reason why this over here is showing that. It's because of that.
And in that example that Luke just gave, and it kind of finishes yours as well, is like if Deep Space can help you understand that a decision at the BIM or the design level has related in activity that's more dangerous, like taking that a step further, you also want to figure that out as soon as possible. Like you might know that it's come from design, and you don't want to wait till the end of the project and 8 safety incidents before you figure that out. You're getting daily forms filled out in DS Site. You should be able to take that information, go straight back up, and figure out straight away, hey, actually, there's the correlation between these two. This central layer is telling me that this safety incident has happened 3 times in a week. It's more than likely caused by this particular data point here. And I think that's what really excites me, that two-way communication. And from a safety perspective, I think we all know what the value is there.
And that's the few things we identified for project managers is like program, analytics and the ability to manage program better, risks, and also the ability to basically save your project lessons. And this is something quite unique in our platform is at any moment with any data point you're looking at, you can save it as a lesson, which becomes a lesson for the project, but also a lesson for the organization. And at the moment, a lot of people are waiting to the end of projects to do lessons learned, at which point you've made that mistake 3 or 4 times again on other projects. So the ability to get that lesson to kind of the board level, executive level as fast as possible is also a unique thing in DS Pro.
Not to mention those mistakes are costing $50,000 each.
At least.
Yeah. So dudes, what's the one call out to the industry?
Build with data.
And don't wait. Don't wait any longer because it's coming with or without you. Deep Space, we know we're in a race because we know our competitors are coming. Your competitors are coming. But we had some awesome success with recent customers. They're loving it and love you to come on.
So if I'm an exec in one of these, companies that you spoke about, what do I have to do?
Just reach out to us, have a chat. We'll come visit you and look at your workflows. But ultimately, we have an off-the-shelf product that's ready to roll, and we have implementation that's really easy. And it's just more so the question we get to is like that 2 or 3 things that make it a no-brainer for you. Once we've got that in, your whole business is going to start benefiting because your whole team has access to this across multiple projects. And that's why we see we've got traction in Hong Kong and Asia and Saudi Arabia already because it's quite unique, the offering that we're bringing to market.
Yeah. Nice. And what does the future for Deep Space look like? I
was going to ask you that question. What's 2025 hold?
2025, I think, is by far the most important year at Deep Space for a number of reasons. I think one, we spoke of right at the top of the call, right? I think the merging of tech. Secondly, I think there's just so much happening. In Brisbane, where you are now, Luke, Olympics are taking place. In Auckland, City Rail Link is a mess. The number of projects around the world that are feeling the pinch has been escalating. We are literally at war when it comes to labor shortage, aging workforce, technology, margins, profitability. The issues and the worries are not going away. And I think this is the call out to the industry really to kind of look hard internally and make that change. And I think we are the change drivers. So for us, it's quite exciting. I see us in a position where we are, we've got green shoots in a number of countries, probably English-speaking countries to begin with, is a natural progression pathway for us. We're already seeing some of that, right? You mentioned Hong Kong, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, which not necessarily English-speaking, but lot of influence and a lot of construction work taking place in those countries. UK and US and Canada perhaps are probably the next ones for us. But yeah, super excited, super bright is what I'm saying.
Awesome. Any wrap up, Michael, Suds?
For mine, I'm just, like I said, very excited the change we can bring to the industry, and it's not just at one level, it's at multiple levels. And like a parting kind of thought is that I think we're really excited to put trust back into the hands of the people that want it, right? And I think that's been people have been searching for it for a while, but it's been hard to get a hold of. And I do really believe this is going to bring that change, more trust in your decision making.
Yeah, and I just like what you're saying, Suds, is a phrase that I like. If nothing changes, nothing changes, and I think that's where it's at. We've got to do something. You're running a construction company. Is it going to be the same as it was 5 years ago, 10, 15 years ago? Or are you going to change and do something better?
Yeah. Another saying I like is if you suck the lollipop of mediocrity, you'll suck forever. So let's not do that. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully that helps people understand a little bit about what we're about. And yeah, looking forward to the year ahead.
Awesome.
By the way, just stay on.